The sun beat down mercilessly on the cracked earth of Dust Creek, a forgotten village where crops had long stopped growing and hope had dried up with the river. In the heart of the square, a weary man stood trembling before the town's moneylender. His name was Thomas, a once proud farmer now stripped of everything: land, livestock, dignity. The villagers gathered, drawn by the familiar sound of desperation. Thomas had come to beg for mercy, for more time, for anything. But the moneylender, known for his greed and cruelty, shook his head with a smirk that chilled the air more than the heat ever could. "You've got nothing left to give," the man sneered, then looked past Thomas to his daughter. Lila stood quietly, her eyes wide, her hands clutching the hem of her dress. At just 17, she was known for her gentle nature, her kindness to animals, and her habit of reading by the dry well. "But she," the moneylender continued, "she's worth something." A hush fell over the crowd. No one spoke. No one moved. Thomas fell to his knees, tears forming in the corners of his tired eyes. He didn't want this, he had no choice. It was either his daughter or disgrace, punishment, maybe death. Lila looked down, silent and still. The villagers avoided her gaze. The silence stretched painfully. And then, from the back of the crowd, a voice called out, rough, unexpected. "I'll pay the debt." All eyes turned toward Jed, the rancher nobody liked. A heavy silence hung in the dusty air as Jed stepped forward, the sound of his boots scraping against the cracked earth louder than the murmurs that had filled the square just moments before. No one expected him, Jed Carter, the reclusive rancher who lived on the edge of town, a man spoken of in whispers and warnings. He walked with a limp from an old injury and wore the same weather-beaten coat year-round. Most believed he was bitter, dangerous even. He never smiled. Never spoke unless spoken to. Yet here he was, stepping between Lila and the unthinkable. "I'll pay the debt," he said, his voice rough like gravel but steady. Every head turned, stunned. A child clutched their mother's skirt. The blacksmith muttered under his breath. This man, was offering to help. Lila's father stared, speechless, lips parted in disbelief. The moneylender raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. "You," he scoffed. "You can't even." Jed didn't answer. He reached into his coat, pulled out a small, battered pouch, and let it fall with a soft thud at the man's feet. Dust rose around it. "In full," Jed said. Then without waiting for thanks or reaction, he turned and walked away, his limp dragging in the dirt. No one knew what to say. The silence left behind was heavier than before. Lila stood frozen, her fate changed by the man no one trusted. And for the first time in a long while, the town had seen Jed, but not in the way they thought they knew him. The road to Jed's ranch was long and lonely, flanked by brittle weeds and dry fences leaning from age. Lila walked with hesitant steps, her heart still heavy from the weight of what almost happened, and the man who stopped it. The ranch came into view, broken shingles, a sagging barn, and silence as thick as the dust. She found Jed mending a fence, hammering nails with slow, steady hands. He glanced up, unsurprised. "Figured you'd come." "I had to," she said softly. I don't understand. Why would you do that for me?" Jed didn't look at her right away. He drove another nail, then finally answered, voice low. "Because no one deserves to be bought. Not you. Not anyone." They worked side by side in quiet rhythm. Lila passed him nails. He held the boards. Inside the house, through the cracked door, she glimpsed a worn table with yellowed photographs, one of a smiling girl with eyes like Jed's. Nearby, a folded letter, its edges softened by time. On the mantel, a hand-carved wooden cross with a name etched deep, Eliza. "She was my sister," Jed said suddenly, not needing to explain how. Town turned away from her too. She didn't make it. Lila's throat tightened. The weight Jed carried was quiet but endless. The town had painted him a villain, but here, in the silence of wind and wood, Lila saw the truth. Jed hadn't saved her out of pity, he'd done it because someone once should have saved Eliza. The wooden floorboards of Dust Creek's old town hall creaked beneath the weight of a restless crowd. Word had spread about what almost happened to Lila, and who had stopped it. Faces filled the room, curious, skeptical, some ashamed. Lila stood near the front, her hands clasped tightly, heart pounding in her chest. She took a breath. "You all know what was going to happen to me. And you know who stepped in." A murmur rippled through the hall. "You think Jed Carter is cold, mean, strange." But when everyone else stayed silent, he stood up. The room quieted. He didn't ask for anything. He just paid, and walked away. That's who he really is. For a moment, no one moved. Then a frail voice broke the silence. "He brought firewood to my porch every winter," said an elderly woman, rising slowly from her chair. Never said a word. Another man stood. "My son was sick last year. A bag of medicine showed up at our door. I never knew who left it, until now." More followed. A widow tearfully recalled finding her broken gate mended overnight. A boy spoke of Jed feeding his hungry dog behind the general store. The hall shifted, something unspoken now felt. For years, they'd looked away, judged him from a distance. But kindness doesn't always wear a smile or seek credit. And now, the town was beginning to see not just what Jed had done, but who they had failed to see all along. The air was crisp with the scent of cider and baked bread as Dust Creek's annual harvest festival came alive with music and laughter. Colorful ribbons fluttered in the wind, children darted between hay bales, and for the first time in years, the town square felt whole. At the center of it all walked Jed Carter. No longer a shadow on the edge of town, he moved slowly but not unnoticed. A young mother handed him a slice of warm pie. The blacksmith clapped his shoulder with a smile. Children, once wary, now ran up to him with painted faces and sticky hands. Lila stood nearby, her books hugged to her chest. She was dressed for her first day of school, something she once only dreamed about. Jed had insisted on covering the cost, brushing off her gratitude like he always did. But she knew. Everyone knew. The town that once whispered now spoke with warmth. The hands that once turned away now reached out in friendship. A simple man, once overlooked, had become the heart of a community learning how to see again. As the sun dipped behind the hills, painting the sky in gold and orange, a soft voice narrated over the joy. Sometimes the loneliest hearts carry the greatest love. And sometimes, it takes one silent act of courage to wake a sleeping world to its humanity. And in that little corner of the world, both Jed and Dust Creek were no longer forgotten.